Okay, we're going to find the square root of 3,148. So, because there are 4 digits, we know that there are going to be 2 digits in our answer. Now, remember when you did this on the pegboard, what you ended up with was something that looked like this. We had a square and a square. On this side we had tens and units, and on this side we had tens and units. The first square that we're going to solve for is this one right here, 10 squared. So tens times tens is going to be less than or equal to this number here, 31. Now remember, we don't mean tens, we mean what number in the tens place value is less than or equal to 31 when it's squared. So the number in our tens place value squared is going to be less than or equal to 31. 5 squared is 25, which is less than or equal to 31. So the number in our tens place value is 5. So we look here, this is a 5, and this is a 5. So 5 squared, our 10 squared is 25. Subtract, we have 6, and we bring down our 4. Now we're going to solve for our 2 rectangles. Now we know that this is units, and this length here is tens. This is units, and this length here, same as this length here, is tens. And we have 2 of them. So what we have is tens times units, tens times units, plus our second rectangle here, units times tens, has to be less than or equal to this number here, 64. That's the number we're using. So rather than keep it laid out like this, which is pretty confusing, we can do 2 tens times units is going to be less than or equal to 64, or 2 times tens times units is less than or equal to 64. We've solved for our tens. Our tens place here is 5. So 2 times 5 times what is less than or equal to 64? This is what we're solving for. 2 times 5 is 10. 10 times what is less than or equal to 64? 10 times 6 is less than or equal to 64. 10 times 6 is 60, which is less than or equal to 64. So let's put the 6 in our units place value. And what's our answer is 60. So we're going to subtract our 60. So we've just solved part 2, which is our 2 times our tens times our units, which was less than or equal to 64. And we figured that 2 times our tens, we've already solved for our tens, 5 times our unit is 60, which is less than or equal to 64. So we've gotten this one here. This is 10 times units, this is unit times tens. We've solved those 2. We subtract, we bring down our 8. And now we need to check to see if our units answer is correct. We're looking at this last square. This last square is our units here times our units. So this is our units squared. So units times units, or units squared, is less than or equal to, what do we have here? 48. So let's check. 6 is what we thought our units was. So 6 squared equals what? Equals 36, which is less than or equal to 48. So our answer works. 6 squared is 36. Do our subtraction. 12, we have a remainder of 12. Let's try the next problem that you have. The square root of 1,770. Again, we know we have two place values. Again, we're going to remember what we did with the pegboard. This was our tens, this was our units, this was our tens, and this was our units. And again, we're going to start with our first square, the number that's in our tens place value squared. We're going to start with this first number here. So 10 squared has to be less than or equal to 17. So what number squared is less than or equal to 17? 4 squared is equal to 16, which is less than or equal to 17. So we're going to say in our tens place we're going to have a 4. That was just minty. So we're going to subtract 1, 17. Now we're going to look at our two rectangles. 10 times a unit, or unit times 10. And like we said before, we've got two of the exact same rectangles. So we're going to say 2 times tens, the number we have in our tens place, times our units has to be less than or equal to 17. So 2 times, we have a 4 in our tens place, times what is less than or equal to 17. 2 times 4 is 8. 8 times what is less than or equal to 17? Let's try 2. Let's try 2 in our units place. 8 times 2 is 16, which is less than or equal to 17. So 16, 1. Now we're going to bring down our 0. Now we're going to look at our last square. That's our units squared. Let's see if what we think for our units is correct. So if our last square has to be less than or equal to 10. So our units times our units has to be less than or equal to 10. So our units squared has to be less than or equal to 10. We think our units are 2. 2 squared is 4, which is less than or equal to 10. Let's subtract our 4. We have a 6. We have a remainder of 6. Let's try one more. Okay. We'll do the square root of 7,230. Again, 4 numbers, 2 place values in our answer. We're going to think about that work that we did with the pegboard. And again, 2 squares and 2 rectangles. Our first square is our 10 squared, right? Because we had our tens and our units, our tens and our units. We're going to look at this first number. So our 10 squared has to be less than or equal to 72. What number squared is less than or equal to 72? Let's try 8. 8 squared is 64, which is less than or equal to 72. So let's put down that 8. 8 squared is 64. It gives us an 83. Now we're going to look at our rectangles here. Our 10 times our unit times our 10, which is the same as 2 times our tens times our units, which is going to be less than or equal to 83. This is the next number we're working with. So 2 times our tens, this 8 is the number that's in our tens place value, times what is going to be less than or equal to 83. 2 times 8 is 16. 16 times what is less than or equal to 83? Say 5. So let's try 5 in our units place. 16 times 5 is 80, which is less than or equal to 83. We're going to bring down this 0. Now we're going to check our last square. So this should be our units squared. Our units squared. So our units times our units has to be less than or equal to 30. What do we have for our units? 5. So let's check it out. 5 squared is what? It's 25, which is less than or equal to 30. So we subtract that 25, and our remainder is 5.